Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, the CONCACAF Nations League continued on Tuesday with 6 fixtures. In League A, Group A, League A, Group A, Jamaica will, a short while from now, face the challenge of Mexico at the National Stadium in Kingston. Our reporter, Brian Pitter, is in situ and he joins us now. Brian, what, if anything, is happening at the stadium at this time?
Thank you, George. I mean, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but the music is really loud, and there are actually more fans in the stadium at this time than there were last week. So I'm guessing that anticipation for this game is a lot higher. So a lot of persons will be turning out, hopefully, this evening when the game kicks off at 7 p.m.
Yeah, Brian, I guess people shouldn't be surprised when bad results cause the fans to stay away, and in the same way, good results bring the fans out to the national stadium. So you would say, I'm sure, that the good result and good performance against Suriname have caused more people to come out earlier for this game than they did for that Suriname clash.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's the feeling or the anticipation around the squad now is that we're much better than we were a few months ago. The team seems to be gelling, they seems to be more united, especially with off-the-field issues. That seems to have caused a greater camaraderie amongst the players, and that has seeped into the fan base as well. So the fans are out here today, and I'm expecting a large turnout. The thing is, though, George, Mexico has a good record here at the National Stadium. Since 1996, they've lost only twice, actually, against Jamaica here at Independence Park.
Last question, Brian. You were at very close quarters, almost pitch side, watching that Suriname game. Comment on the Reggae Boys' use of the football over the course of the 90 minutes against Suriname.
I think it was much better than what we saw in the previous regimes. I think Paul Hall is trying his best to implement a system where, we pass the ball more instead of just lofting it up the field and hoping and praying. We do see some of that when for example, Damian Lowe tried to find some of our attackers, but there's more cohesion on the field, and that really culminated in the last goal where Jamal Lowe scored an absolutely wonderful team effort to seal that victory against Suriname. So hopefully we can see some more of that here tonight.
All right, Brian, top man, we will be in touch with you later on, we hope, and of course we look forward to what you will produce out of your trip to the National Stadium for this CONCACAF Nations League clash. That's Brian Pitter there at the National Stadium in Kingston. All right, so Brian is there at the National Stadium, a man who knows a thing or 3 or 4 or 5 or multiples of those numbers about the Reggae Boys and big games. Miguel Coley, the former assistant coach at the Reggae Boys, a man who has been advancing his own coaching agenda in the Middle East, most recently in Qatar. And of course, he set the standard very high where schoolboy football is concerned with his all-conquering Jamaica college teams. Notice the S on that word. Not one team was all-conquering under his watch. All-conquering JC teams that he coached to schoolboy football supremacy. Miguel, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. Good to hear from you again.
Hey man, thank you. Thanks for having me, and good evening to your viewers.
Yeah, the last time they would have seen you on SportsMax was a long time ago, 2018, when we gathered to do the Russia World Cup, and you provided analysis then. Miguel, based on what you saw, well, let's just use the Suriname game as a reference point for these Reggae Boys. I know you'd have looked at them before, but did you see things in Suriname, notwithstanding the result, that convinces you that the team is picking up, finally moving in a positive direction?
Well, attackingly, especially in the second half, definitely. They were more fluid in terms of attack. You saw the style of play that was evident. They wanted to go to the wing, a lot of wing plays. Defensively, though, throughout the first half and second half, there are a lot of questions, especially on the opposite side of whichever side Lou is on. Because if you notice in the first half, the coach changed it from the left side to the right side because defensively, there was not a lot of coverage.
So the defensive issues that you saw, was that an issue? Were those issues caused by individuals not fulfilling their role quite well, not having the best of games, or was it a systemic issue that caused those issues that you saw in defense?
I thought it was more individual. If you notice on the right side, they had gotten 2 chances and then the goal. And when Lowe went onto the right side, he covered Javane a lot better, and we were able to mitigate the attack from the left side from Suriname. So based on that, you can say it's more individual.
Yeah, the midfield has long been a problem point for the team, Miguel, not seemingly able to possess the ball, especially against the better teams. Against teams of lesser ability, that's easy. But against the good teams, it's very, very difficult to retain the ball, to pass the ball accurately under pressure. Do we have the personnel to rectify that against this Mexico team? Do we have the system and the time to perfect the system to allow us to use the ball better against a team as good as Mexico?
What I love about the Suriname game with the midfielders is that many times they were dropping in between the 2 centre-back, and many times they were going at the sides between the centre-back and the wing-backs. So you find that they were trying to find solutions. However, they are very dependent on Ravel, and sometimes when he comes deep, there's no player supporting, moving up in that position. There's no rotation of player moving in that position to support Shamar Nicholson. So that is something that we have to look at. I would suspect a player like Luis Romo would be, stay close, more and more closer to Ravel in this game, because he's the difference on the football pitch, especially getting into the attack.
Hear you on that. Miguel, just hold the line for us. Stay where you are. We're going to take a quick break and come right back. We're talking Reggae Boyz football, CONCACAF Nations League. The Reggae Boyz play Mexico at the National Stadium in a couple of hours from now, and we are building up to the action. Much more after these.
Back on the SportsMax Zone, we're looking ahead to the CONCACAF Nations League match coming up at the National Stadium in Kingston this evening. The Mexicans are here to face Jamaica's Reggae Boyz. Miguel Coley, former national assistant coach to Winfred Schaefer, is discussing the prospects of the Reggae Boyz with us. As our reporter Brian had mentioned earlier on, Miguel, the Mexicans have a good record at Kingston, only losing twice here in a couple of decades. You have strategized with Schaefer as a Jamaican coach battling Mexico in the past. We, though, on this show have assessed that this Mexico team is significantly weaker than many Mexico teams that we have seen in the past. First of all, do you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. The Mexico team, that played against Suriname, they have mostly local players and 3 players from Spain who probably Lainez is probably play 7 games for Real Betis, and so it's a much weaker team. However, Mexico is Mexico, and these players they have some experience, although young. They have 2 centre-backs who are very young, but they want to get into the Mexico team for the World Cup. So it's a great opportunity for them. They have some pedigree. Some of them came through the system, play under 17, some play under 23. So they have some pedigree. But as I said, in terms of Mexico, especially when I was a coach, it was a much weaker team.
Yeah. As far as their current state of building up to the Qatar World Cup later this year, they seem to be getting themselves together. Their recent friendly internationals have been against teams like Ecuador, Uruguay, and Nigeria. So their recent opposition is far superior to the opposition Jamaica has faced in recent times. Does this impact on what might happen in the game?
Definitely. It would, in terms of playing teams that is playing much faster at a higher game speed, being competitive, especially for the defenders, because I believe they're trying to build a unit. If you notice the last game, they have one player 22 and 22 years old, one 24, 2 young defenders, and at the same time they're a little bit 5'10", which is, you can say against Shamar Nicholson, it can be something that we can look at in terms of strategizing against those 2 centre-backs, especially Angul, who is also a left-back playing in the centre of the pitch. So it's a young team. It's a young team mixed with local players, and Jamaica have a great chance to win this game.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier on that even though this Mexico team may not be, as powerful as some Mexico teams we've faced in the past, you said it yourself, Mexico is Mexico. I remember one of the last major assignments you would have had against Mexico would have been the Copa America, with you as coach, with Schaefer, in the Copa America Centenario back at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena back in 2016. The Mexicans won that game 2-0. How do you strategize against a Mexico team? Because they have a philosophy of football. They play football in a certain way. As a Jamaican coach preparing to face Mexico, what are the things that you're saying to your team to look out for and try to nullify?
Well, you have to be tough on them, especially inside of the midfield. They have a lot of rotation inside of the midfield. And the midfielder tend to many times, their transition is very, very good. So you see one player, he comes to touch the ball. In the final phase, he's also there. So there's a lot of rotation. The midfielders tend to move a lot. So you have to be very strong inside of the midfield if you're going to go 1v1 against them, or you're going to be in the zone. But you have to be very, very compact as a team playing against Mexico. Because once they can break the line and play the ball out to the wingers, for example, today you look at Lainez, you look at also Rodolfo on the wing, we have to prevent them from playing that penetrative pass, especially to the striker Martin, playing the return pass maybe to Cardova, and then playing to create the 1v1 on the flank. And and in this case, they are very dangerous. So you have to be very compact in the middle.
Yeah, you said a few minutes ago that the defense of the Jamaica team is something that you feel needs to improve against high-quality opposition. I'm getting the feeling that, given what you've said, that the Jamaicans would be hard-pressed to prevent Mexico from scoring tonight.
I mean, definitely. If you watch the game against Suriname, Jamaica, we try to press with, especially with Ravel and Shamar pressing with, but we're pressing with 4-4-2 flat. And if you notice, every time they go up, the Surinamese, they had 3 versus 2, especially in the center of the park. And the number 21 could simply play the ball out to the wing back. And it caused a lot of problems, 1v1 against Javain and a lot of 1v1 against the left back. It's very, very important that if we want to press, we have to press in a diamond 4-4-2, and also allow the 2 wingers to give support to the 2 wing backs. That's going to be very important. We cannot allow 2 versus 1 on the flanks and numerical superiority inside of the penalty box.
Miguel, the national coaches are at a disadvantage because they don't have the players for extended periods of time. So in terms of a system or a system and its alternative that Paul Hall prefers to use with the players at his disposal, how does a national coach impress upon his players what he wants them to do before they meet up for camp? Does he send regular emails? Does he have regular briefing sessions with the players? Does he call them? Does he work on it like that so that when they get together, the adjustment time isn't as long as otherwise, so that they can get the job done?
What is important is that you have to be very concise, and you have to be very concise in whatever message you have to the player. So you have a plan, you have to make it as short as possible to the player, whichever way you want to communicate, even if it's a 1v1, if it's by a phone call, but the message must be concise, it must be very clear to the players as much as possible. So in terms of the coaches, how you scout as a coach, how do you cut the tapes as a coach, those things are very, very important. And over a period of time, it develops that the coach understands the player and the player understand the coach. So it's by time in terms of developing an understanding and how clear and concise the coach is in a short period of time.
Yeah, and based on where the program is right now, do you think that Jamaicans should be optimistic about the future, the near future of these Reggae Boyz at this time?
We have to be patient. We definitely have to be patient. However, we're in the CONCACAF Nations League. We want to get to the next round. So result is important. Today's a match, not about just the performance, but the result for this match. Again, Suriname, you want good performance. You want, think about performance and result. But this game is about the result.
Do we have the quality to get a result today?
Yes, we have. Our top 4 is very strong. With the Flemings, with the Leon Bailey, Shamar Nichols, and Ravel Morrison. That's the area in which we want to get the ball in as much as possible. Shamar Nichols has to have a better game than the last game. He has to definitely be a reference for us inside of the box. He is very strong. Against those two center back, I think 1v1 he can create for himself and he can create for others. And the cross in the box for him today is going to be very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before you go, Miguel, you mentioned earlier a few minutes ago about communicating with players. We know that you haven't been in the Caribbean for several years now. You were in Iran first before you went to Qatar, wasn't it so?
Yeah, it was Iran, then UAE, and now in Qatar.
Iran, UAE, then Qatar. I know they speak English there, but it's not totally English. Can you talk to us very briefly about how you've been able to coach successfully in those, on that continent, and if there were some language issues as you try to, impact on the players in the way that you want to?
In Iran, definitely, and thanks for the question. In Iran, it was a bit difficult. We had a translator.
Yes.
Who didn't play football, so that was a little bit difficult. But over a period of time, I had to learn a little bit of the language too, so I could communicate much better with the players. UAE was easy because of they speak English. Majority of the players speak English, and in Qatar also. So there has not been such a issue with communicating with the players in UAE and in Qatar. But what I normally do, I normally have my board. So, with speaking, I also show them drawing. I remember Mr. Bell normally laugh after me and say, boy, coach, every day I see you drawing. But I normally use a little bit of drawing and while speaking to let them understand fully what I want them to do.
Which Mr. Bell is that, by the way?
Coach Bertis Bell, man.
Coach Bertis Bell. All right. George, you finished with Miguel as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, Miguel, it certainly was a pleasure talking to you. Always a pleasure talking to you at any level of football. We certainly are happy with the strides that you have made in taking your coaching overseas. And we're looking forward to having you back in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, as soon as possible.
Well, inshallah, as we'll say here. But thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure speaking to you and Mr. Davis. And all the best to Jamaica later.
Okay, great. All right, Miguel Coley, former assistant coach of the Jamaica team with Winfred Schaefer.
Yeah.
Great football mind there, George.
Oh, yes.
And I think Jamaica has lost a good one in not having him in the current Jamaican framework.
Yes, and he's coming off some success because he coached a Qatari team, Salal SC,
yes,
if I get my memory correct, and he coached them to success in their league competition, like it would be equivalent to the League 2 then.
Yes.
Yeah, but he was the head coach and he did win the league title with them, so that's noteworthy. And his CV is building by the year.
Yes.
And he's highly impressive already.
Yes.
And the sky's the limit for Miguel Coley. All right, back with more after these on the SportsMax Zone. Thank you for watching SportsMax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and to click the notification bell to stay informed.